Welcome, my little couch potatoes, to the comfiest courtroom on the internet. I'm your host, Llama, and it's time for dramatic testimony, overruled objections, and absolutely unqualified opinions. So grab your snuggiest blanket, some delicious snacks, and get ready to watch court with your internet besties. This is Couch Court with Llama. After dark. Hello, my little couch potatoes. We are on week 6 of the USA versus Sean Diddy Combs trial. And as you all know, there are no cameras or video allowed, but every news network around the world is there. Now, tonight, we're going to be going through the updates provided by the Washington Post and their team of journalists who are inside of the courtroom. Now, if you haven't yet, please like this video to appease the YouTube gods, and be sure to click the subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss when we go live or drop a video. Tonight, we're covering days 26 and 27 of the Sean Diddy Combs federal sex trafficking trial in New York. Attorneys are milling about the courtroom, but the judge has yet to enter to begin Wednesday's proceedings. Sean Combs is back in a light sweater and white-collared shirt, talking across the table to his lead counsel, Mark Agnifilio. To his left, as usual, is Brian Steele, and behind them, lawyers Tina Garagos, Nicole Westmoreland, and Alexandra Shapiro are standing in a circle chatting. We're now waiting to find out whether the trial will even proceed Wednesday, after yet another juror issue cropped up. That's right, they're having juror issues all over the place, it seems. One of the jury members couldn't make it to court Wednesday because they experienced vertigo symptoms while commuting in and had to turn around. The parties are discussing the matter, but court may be adjourned as a result. This follows the dismissal of juror number 6 on Monday after the judge lost faith in his credibility, and a murky issue with another juror that was hashed out behind closed doors Tuesday. The parties will first meet in a sidebar before we get a decision on whether trial takes place today after the juror experienced vertigo. One of the big concerns here is whether this juror's condition is temporary or if it may be ongoing, which might entail replacing the juror with an alternative. Lead defense counsel Mark Agnifilio asked for a sealed sidebar chat, meaning unavailable to the press and the public, because the lawyers are expected to ask questions about the juror's medical condition. Defendants cannot participate in sidebars, but Sean Combs is able to see what the judge and attorneys are discussing via a live transcript on monitors at the attorney's table. He is following along intently, leaning in and reading the feed from the monitor at defense attorney Tina Garagos' empty seat, because Garagos, of course, is at the sidebar. So the judge said the court would inquire to learn more about the juror's condition. It's unclear at this point whether they will try to replace the juror who experienced vertigo symptoms on their way to court and had to go home. The parties are proceeding for now by going over some evidence the government wants to present, which the defense is objecting to. Now, Brendan Paul, an ex-assistant for Sean Combs, who is set to testify if the trial proceeds today, arrived at the courthouse in the morning in a blue buttoned-up shirt and a gray suit. After a brief discussion about the admissibility of text exchanges involving an alleged drug dealer, court is out for the day on account of a sick juror. It's unclear whether this juror will be able to return, and the court will make further inquiries about their condition. Given the Juneteenth holiday on Thursday, it's unlikely the government will rest its case on Friday, as has been expected. It was an unexpectedly brief trial day, with the court dismissed mid-morning after the sick juror couldn't attend. Illnesses, family issues, and other conflicts are not uncommon for jurors to experience, especially in trials that last weeks or months. The Sean Diddy Combs trial is experiencing some of these issues during the final weeks of the lengthy proceeding. Juror number 6 was dismissed Monday after giving conflicting accounts of where he lived. An unknown issue with a different juror may still be unresolved after a closed-door discussion Tuesday, and court was let out early Wednesday after a juror fell ill and couldn't attend. Now, these types of situations are why alternate jurors are selected to follow the trial and step in if needed. 6 alternates were chosen for the Combs trial. One replaced juror number 6, and another may be tapped in if the 6th juror is unable to attend future trial dates. Now, jurors need to live primarily in New York to sit on this jury, but living situations are sometimes muddy. Questions arose last week about whether juror number 6 actually resided in New Jersey, contradicting the man's accounts during jury selection that he lived in the Bronx. The lack of clarity proved concerning enough that the judge ultimately replaced the juror. Now, an issue with a second juror cropped up the same day and was discussed in a sealed proceeding after court on Tuesday. We don't know the details, but by Wednesday morning, there were no signs that the judge intended to dismiss this juror. Sometimes jurors inform the court about something that could compromise their service. It is unclear if that is what happened, but judges have an obligation to find out if a juror can remain unbiased. A juror's promise that their fairness has not been affected can sometimes be enough to keep them on the trial. As for the juror who experienced vertigo on the way to the courthouse Wednesday morning, resulting in an earlier adjournment, this isn't unusual in trials. A short illness generally does not disqualify a person from continuing to serve. In some cases, a trial will be on hold while a juror attends a necessary doctor's appointment or a procedure. It is unlikely that the juror who suffered a vertigo episode will be released for good unless the issue continues. So that concludes day 26. A whole lot of nothing happened. Now, we'll get into day 27, and I just want to preface that for some reason I couldn't find my usual Washington Post updates for this day. So this is coming from Sky News and their journalist in the courtroom. So day 27 of the Sean Diddy Combs trial is now underway. We're expecting to hear from Brendan Paul, a former employee of the hip-hop mogul. His testimony is expected to take the whole day, and court is finishing early so that a juror can attend their son's graduation ceremony. So prosecutors say Paul has been attending court since Tuesday, and they want to get him home. No evidence has been heard since then, as a juror was ill on Wednesday, and yesterday was a federal U.S. holiday. Before today's testimony begins, the judge is dealing with a few legal issues. Following the dismissal of a juror earlier this week, there was a discussion of an issue with another member of the panel. The judge tells the court today he denies the defense application relating to the man, juror 7, after questioning. See, in a trial, a juror defense application is when a defendant's lawyer requests to have a juror excused from the jury. So the defense wanted this juror out. Now, prosecutor Christy Slovak is now calling Brendan Paul to the witness stand. Wearing a blue suit and a white shirt, he confirms to the court that Sean Diddy Combs is his former boss and that he is from Cleveland, Ohio. Paul says he was an assistant to the hip-hop star for 18 months from late 2022 to March 2024. Now, the former Diddy employee tells the court his last day working for the rapper was March 25th, 2024. This was when he was arrested at Miami Opa-locka Airport, he says, on his way to a family holiday. Before he arrived at the airport, he had been sweeping Diddy's room, the court is told. He said he found some cocaine, which he put in his bag, forgetting it was there. I know, that just happens to all of us all the time. Properties owned by Combs in Miami and Los Angeles were raided by federal agents on the same day. Almost, I wonder if he was doing that because they got a heads up. Just wondering. Brendan Paul tells the court about the time he secured the role. He says he was told not to be in a relationship and that he wouldn't have time to see his family because it was a tumultuous job and would take all my time. Paul says he signed an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, when he went for an interview with Christina Karam, Combs' former chief of staff, and Frankie Scintilla, the rapper's music manager. He got the job and started working a few days later. He tells the court that at one point, the rapper had 5 assistants and they divided their tasks based on their skills. That is a lot of assistants. Paul was a former college basketball player, so worked on food and fitness planning for Combs as well as music. The court hears Brendan Paul worked about 80 to 100 hours a week as an assistant to Combs. He says he was always on call, based between Los Angeles, California, and Miami, where the music mogul had properties. He started in late 2022 on a salary of $75,000, which went up to $100,000 in January 2024, paid by Combs Enterprises, jurors were told. Asked about the longest period he went without sleep while working for Combs, Paul says this was 3 days with a few naps. I was young, so I was able to handle it, he adds, telling the court he would take Adderall and on a few occasions, cocaine. Prior to working for Combs, he said he had only smoked weed. The working environment was intense, he adds. Assistants worked to make sure Combs was happy. His former employee, Brendan Paul, tells the court, as he did not take no for an answer. Combs compared his assistants to an elite Navy SEAL team, demanding they move with no failures, according to Paul. He says he was fired 2 or 3 times during his employment, including in October 2023, when he forgot Combs' Lululemon fanny pack. Oh, geez. I want to see your face, he says Combs told him. Call Karam and say you are fired. However, Paul says Karam told him to lay low for a period of time and the incident would be forgotten. That's what some of the other employees have said, too, who had been abruptly fired and then still had their jobs. Now, former Diddy assistant Paul now tells the court he saw his boss using drugs, including cocaine, ketamine, ecstasy, and marijuana. He recalls being asked to buy thousands of dollars worth of drugs, including marijuana, cocaine, pink cocaine, ecstasy, ketamine, and others. He also describes how he met up with dealers. He tells the court Combs asked him to try drugs, and he did it to prove my loyalty. He says that one time he felt euphoric but did not feel the full effect. Combs asked if it was good, he says, adding, I said yes, and then I kept working. Questioning now moves on to Wild King nights, also referred to as freak-offs or hotel nights previously during the trial. Now, Brendan Paul says these involved alcohol, sex, and drugs. The hip-hop mogul was seeing Jane, who testified under a pseudonym earlier in the trial during the period of Paul's employment from late 2022 to March 2024. Combs was also seeing other women, Jane said in her testimony. Asked about the Wild King nights, Paul says no other girlfriends took part of them that he knew of while he worked for Combs. Now, following the bombshell lawsuit filed by Cassie, Diddy's on-off partner from 2007 to 2018, in November 2023, Paul says these nights stopped taking place at hotels, but continued at Combs' homes. He says his involvement in them started about 8 months into the job, and his role was to set up and clean up. He did this on a few occasions, the court hears. Setting up, he would bring supplies, including toiletries, lights, candles, incense, condoms, liquor, soap, lubricant, and a Gucci pouch in which drugs were kept, he tells the court. To clean up, he would put on gloves for sanitary reasons, like a whole hazmat suit, jeez. Brendan Paul, who has been granted immunity, is now asked about the events of March 25th, 2024, his last day working as an assistant to Sean Diddy Combs. At the start of his testimony, the court heard he was arrested at a Miami airport for cocaine possession. Asked now why he had the drug, he replies, "It was not mine." That's what they always say, right? It wasn't mine. Somebody else's. I don't know how it got here. Must have been the cocaine fairy. I don't know. However, he says he did not tell authorities this out of loyalty to Combs. Sure, buddy. Charges were later dropped, the court hears. Now, Brian Steele, one of Sean Diddy Combs' defense lawyers, is now cross-examining the rapper's former assistant, Brendan Paul. Steele starts with the topic of Paul's work ethic, putting it to him that he is a hard worker who studies hard and strives for perfection. Paul says yes to all these points and confirms he wanted to work in the music industry. Nobody fooled you about how hard it was going to be, and you welcome that? Steele asks. Yes, Paul replies. He also says it is true he wanted to work with a billionaire, that he felt it was a great opportunity, and that he enjoyed being in Combs' company. Steele asks directly if Paul was sort of a drug mule, to which he responds, absolutely not. He agrees that he personally handed minuscule amounts at a time, and he understood these were for Combs' personal use. Now, cross-examination questioning turns to Jane, who was seeing Combs when Brendan Paul was employed by him. The questions focus on the rapper's hotel or Wild King nights, sex sessions with escorts. Asked by defense attorney Brian Steele if Jane ever appeared hesitant or apprehensive when preparing for one of these events, Paul says no. I mean, was he around her at all times? Okay. Asked if it ever seemed like she was not a willing participant, he replies, absolutely not. And also, was he there? For the whole time during these nights? Okay. Now, defense lawyer Brian Steele refers back to former Diddy assistant Paul's testimony that he once worked for 3 entire days with just a few naps. He admits this was exhilarating, but when Steele puts it to him that he wanted to work for this long, he replies, I don't know if I wanted to. Steele asks about watching Combs take drugs and if they made him more focused. Paul says the music mogul got extremely creative when taking drugs. He tells the court that yes, for the most part, he is indebted to Combs and learned a lot from him. He also says that while he received immunity for his testimony and is compelled to tell the truth, he would have done so even without this, I'm sure. Asked by the prosecution how he feels about Combs, he replies, it's complicated. Aren't they always? There was no further questions, and he leaves the stand. Now, just before the break, jurors were shown messages between Sean Diddy Combs and Cassie Ventura. In one text exchange shown in court, Cassie referred to Combs hitting her head twice, to which he replied, you disrespected me. In another, she told him, I know if I said no to it in New York, it would have been a problem. You only see me one way. You treat me like a hooker. Wow, Combs responded. In a text on May 2nd, 2017, Cassie told him she didn't deserve to be beaten. That's not love, that's possession, she said, and told him that as soon as you get fucked up, you drag me down the hall by my hair. I'm 30 years old. I felt dead. Combs told her she was unappreciative of things he had done for her, the court heard, and said, everyone else sees you acting like a bitch. If I did that for another girl, she would have been so nice and happy, Combs wrote, saying he wished he hadn't wasted his time and energy on her. Ugh. In her testimony, Cassie told the court she was subjected to violence and sexual and emotional abuse throughout their relationship. Now, court is back in session after a short break, and Special Agent Joseph Cerciello of Homeland Security Investigations is on the witness stand. Now, attorney Maureen Comey is asking questions for the prosecution. Cerciello tells the court he had no involvement with the case before the trial, but reviewed charts and exhibits a few weeks ago. He is one of the several summary witnesses called by the prosecution. These are government agents who are reading aloud text messages, travel records, and other document-based evidence. He reviewed data from 2021 to 2024, the court hears, which was when Sean Diddy Combs was seeing Jane. The chart shows locations, names, and travel records related to the investigation. Cerciello tells the court that before the lawsuit against Combs filed by Cassie, the majority of the locations were listed as hotels. After the lawsuit was filed, there were no records of further hotel visits, he says. Now, Special Agent Cerciello is now telling jurors about reported incidences of damage at hotels. Well, several witnesses during the trial, including hotel workers, former employees, and alleged victims, have testified about rooms being left in a state after sex sessions involving male escorts. Now, Combs checked out of a resort in Bal Harbour, Florida, with a $6,000 bill for damages in December 2021. In January 2023, after a stay at the London Hotel in West Hollywood, Los Angeles, there was a bill for $7,577.24 specifically, including $3,750 for damages. Another report about the same hotel from April 2023 shows a bill of $5,654.46, which included damage to furniture. Like, what? What is happening for all that damage to happen? And everyone, like, do they just gut the whole room and bring in new stuff? Oh my goodness. A security incident report said linens were soaked in baby oil, and there was oil found on the carpet, as well as evidence of smoking in the room. Now, today's session has finished early as a juror has their son's graduation ceremony to attend. The judge thanked jurors and wished them a great weekend before reminding them not to discuss the case with anyone or read anything about it. Now, discussing the time frame afterwards, attorney Maureen Comey says the prosecution hopes to rest its case on Monday. Defense lawyer Mark Agnifilio says they will take the weekend to confirm the time needed for their case, but expects it will be short and that they should rest on Tuesday or Wednesday. This means the court could hear closing arguments on Thursday, the judge says, before adjourning for the week. With such a short amount of time planned for the defense, it seems unlikely that Sean Combs himself will testify, and I don't think he will either. That would be stupid. But we've seen it before, so. Now, testimony by two of his former girlfriends, Cassie Ventura and Jane, who used a pseudonym, took 2 of the trial's 6 weeks so far. Well, you guys, that seems to wrap up week 6 of the Sean Diddy Combs sex trafficking trial. And next week is going to be the big week. That's right. The case is finishing up and it will go to the jury's hands and before the July 4th date that everybody was wondering about. So I don't know how it's going to go. I don't know how it's going to go at all. So Couch Potatoes, why don't you leave me a comment under this video, letting me know what you think about all this and how you think it's going to go. Now, we will be releasing these every night. The court is in session. So if you've enjoyed our coverage, please hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss when any of our shows go live. You can also find all of our Diddy coverage in our USA versus Sean Diddy Combs playlist. I want to thank you all for being here with me. And until next time, go forth and be amazing. Bye, everybody.